Congressman Brian Mast, Republican from Florida and an Afghan war veteran, joins me now. Congressman, this is a dreadful mess for those left behind. How do we fix it?
Anybody that thinks that there is a silver bullet at this point to fix that mess for the United States of America, they're living in a pipe dream right now, because what you have is at minimum, you have three very serious nation state players, China, Iran, Russia, that are doing everything to thwart anything the U.S. would do over there to make sure that they have assets to, or rather access to every mineral and mineral right over there, such as lithium and other minerals out of the ground there, other elements out of the ground there. Make sure that they have the choice pick of where their embassies are going to be there, how they're going to set up with the government, and they're working against the United States at every turn to make sure we don't have intelligence there on the ground or in the sky, and certainly to make sure that there's nobody that's going to work with us there in any kind of way. And that means continuing to intimidate those that worked with us in the past, right to the point of hunting them down in the streets.
What do you say to this? The only way to get those people out is to buy them out, is to buy the Taliban off, give them money to get those people out. That's what it's going to come to, right?
They're going to try to extort the United States for every dollar, cent, piece of munition, vote at the UN, you name it, anything that they can to do. If they think that they have the leverage because there's a U.S. citizen or an asset remaining in Afghanistan. And here's one of the bigger concerns on that as well. You and I are still talking about this right now, but we know that the media cycle in many cases has moved on from talking about a lot of what's happening in Afghanistan, certainly these SIV applicants and others. When this cycle totally moves on and people really aren't talking about Afghanistan in the media, then the Taliban at that point have total control when the rest of the world is not paying attention to what's going on there.
You suggested that Secretary of State Blinken was a liar. Well, you want to make your point?
Yeah, I wouldn't just suggest that. I'd say that flat out. I've said it to his face. I would say it again. Every time he stepped in front of the camera, as well as other people from the administration, they stepped up and they lied. You look at the timeline of what they said day one of the Afghanistan hostage crisis, day two, day three, day four, when they're stepping in front of a camera and saying things like, well, listen, the Taliban promised that they weren't going to allow terrorists to enter the country. That's a direct lie to Americans. That's the terrorists saying they're not going to allow terrorists into the country. That's just one simple example. You look at what's going on with their messaging and who was making these decisions to leave equipment, dollars, other things on the ground, people behind, assets behind. They are lying to the face of Congress, the American people, and everybody else that wants to hear about the truth of what's going on there. They're telling the opposite. That's just
very tough stuff. But Congressman Brian Mast, we appreciate you being here, sir. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks for having me.
Let's not forget this story, sir.